Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent on about why I love the big tech companies so much. It's not just because they're popular, and it's not just because they're trending, nor is it about their sky-high valuations. It's actually a lot more nuanced than that. One of the reasons I invest in the major tech companies so much is that they are truly dominant in their fields. Apple is undoubtedly the king of consumer electronics. Along with its unmatched ecosystem and its rising service division, Apple truly has no contender in these fields. Its only real form of competition is that of Samsung and Google. Google, whose phones are hardly owned by anyone, and Samsung, who hardly has an ecosystem to speak of. And while consumer electronics are cyclical in nature, Apple's ability to keep people in their ecosystem and to upgrade continuously is unmatched. These are just some of the characteristics of why I like Apple. You also have the financial side of things, the high profit margins, the consistency of returns, the outperforming of the market in both revenue and growth. And despite being in a sector that's as cyclical as phones, they have proven that they are remarkably good at keeping a consistent revenue. Not only consistent, but continuously growing as well. Between new products, new services, and new features, Apple is undoubtedly the king of their sector. So much so that even the other tech giants, with their endless amounts of profit, wouldn't be able to hold a candlestick within a decade of Apple's crown. Microsoft has a crown of its own. It dominates the B2B space, software solutions, and enterprises. Not to mention a rising cloud power, Microsoft is the company to go to if you are a big business that needs tech solutions. Despite all the scrappy upstarts that have popped in to try to enter the space, Microsoft has either been able to copy them or just buy them outright to maintain its dominance in the space. Microsoft's Windows ecosystem has kept enterprises and governments alike coming back year after year for more subscriptions. And that's one of the other great things about Microsoft. Almost all of its money now is from subscriptions, or from a business perspective, an ongoing expense. No longer do you just buy Windows and you have it for as long as you can tolerate not upgrading. Nor can a business buy Office without any upgrades or compatibility with the rest of the ecosystem. Now you either pay your yearly or monthly subscriptions in order to have an unmatched ecosystem of business tools at your disposal. Microsoft's business is one of the stickiest with one of the widest moats possible. Getting Microsoft out of your government or enterprise would be one of the most challenging things you could possibly do. No other single company has the ability to offer as many solutions. On top of that, the only other alternative would be to build it in-house, something that would cost far more than just paying Microsoft. Not to mention delays, errors, inconsistencies, and vulnerabilities. Microsoft has become the monopoly of business tech, something it will be able to hold on to for years if not decades to come. And with that model comes not only high profit margins and consistent revenue, but a pricing power that's unmatched. Because no matter how high Microsoft raises its fees, getting rid of them will almost always cost more. On top of all that, they're making a pretty good gaming company out of themselves. Only time will tell what happens with their Xbox ambitions. But based on the Xbox Game Pass so far, it looks like Microsoft is taking a play out of its own book and going into another subscription service. Whether it'll be as profitable as they hope it will be one day is still undecided, but they are currently the market leader there too. So if any company is going to do it, it will be Microsoft. The next one on my list is Amazon, the king of online retail and the current crown holder of the cloud space as well. I will admit that Amazon is a little bit less straightforward than the first two. Its retail and cloud division almost seem like opposing forces. Retail being extremely capital intensive, low profit margin, if not none, and is relatively cyclical in nature, and is largely consumer driven. While the cloud division is highly business driven, very steady and non-cyclical in nature, not to mention extremely profitable, and doesn't require nearly as much capital. That being said, Amazon's cloud division has not only helped nurture the company, but has essentially been the backbone of it the whole time, keeping the entire retail division profitable along the way. That's not to say that the retail division has no function or purpose. Amazon being the largest online retailer comes with a lot of other perks. Having the largest online retailer comes with a lot of data, and they have leveraged that huge amount of data to start an advertisement business. Something that could actually prove the retail division is worth its weight. While the retail division dominates revenue, it hardly makes any profits. However, if Amazon truly wants to become an advertisement juggernaut, it needs to allow companies to have more brand awareness on the platform. That being said, I think Amazon is pivoting in this direction anyway. Knowing that it doesn't need to make money in its retail division allows it to run at break even. Its Prime subscription creates a lot of value, especially reoccurring value, not to mention brand loyalty. Not quite as lucrative as Costco's, but still pretty valuable amongst itself. Amazon's cloud division is not only the largest, but essentially is the pioneer of the industry. Amazon Web Services, or AWS, could honestly probably be valued as a trillion-dollar company just in itself. And when it comes to competition, there is no true one-to-one competitor. In the cloud space, they have Microsoft as the only other real contender. And on the online retail front, while it is hyper-competitive, there is no true alternative to Amazon. While you can definitely find an alternative to Amazon for almost every item, there is no other online retailer with such a high variety of products. Next up is Google. Google is one of the more simplified stories here. It is undoubtedly an advertisement powerhouse. Not even an advertisement powerhouse. It is an advertisement monopoly. When it comes to being found online, there's no one you need to pay more than Google. You want your website to be found, you want your products to be bought online, you want people to know you exist, all that is done through Google. Without them, you'll be overlooked, overshadowed, and completely ignored on the internet. And Google might be one of the most scalable companies on the planet. By being the internet's main search engine, everybody finds their results through Google. Well, at least everybody outside of China. Anytime you're trying to find something online, you start with Google. The nearest competitor is Microsoft Bing, but calling that competition is a bit of a stretch, since Google makes up 80% of all search queries on the internet. The biggest downside to this is that the business can be rather cyclical. When marketing budgets contract, usually so does Google's revenue. That being said, their profit margins are enormous. Not to mention, Google is also making a pretty good foray into the cloud space. Right now, they are the number 3 player in the area, although that is pretty distant compared to Microsoft and Amazon. That being said, in a few years' time, Google could have a pretty robust cloud division as well, which it could use to enter the enterprise business space, giving Microsoft a little bit of competition. And if Google would slow down on their stock-based compensation, the free cash flows this company generates would be an absolute boom for shareholders. Last and most definitely least right now is Meta. And while Meta has definitely had an embarrassing year, not only in terms of share price but also in reputation, who actually knew that Meta's reputation could get worse? That being said, Meta is still the number 1 location to go to for advertisement online, at least in the social media space. While you go to Google to be found, you go to Meta to be heard of in the first place. People can't Google your company's name or recognize it on Google search if they didn't see your advertisement pop up on their Instagram feed first. Despite everybody saying TikTok was going to destroy Facebook, or Meta, however you want to say that, it is undisputed that Facebook and Instagram are still the powerhouses of social media. If you want your products to be seen, if you want general brand awareness, you still go to Meta. Facebook and Instagram are absolutely fantastic for companies' advertisement efforts. While there are a lot of problems with the platform, there are no real alternatives to them right now. So despite being universally hated, they are still the places to go to advertise online. A necessary evil, if you will, a near monopoly in the social media advertisement space, because its alternatives are truly in desperate conditions. Meta only has 2 real competitors in the social media advertising space, YouTube, who is owned by Google, and TikTok. And despite YouTube being technical competition, they've never directly competed. But now YouTube and Meta have been taking on TikTok. Both have short video content now, and despite being inferior products to TikTok, when literally billions of people already have their accounts, and both companies have a long list of advertisers on standby that trust the platform, they can cut pretty deep into TikTok's short video format space. It would be a lot harder for TikTok to take over their sectors respectively. And unfortunately, you have the metaverse, which I think will succeed about as much as Stadia did for Google. That being said, Mark Zuckerberg has the ability to use Meta's resources as he sees fit, so if he doesn't lose his resolve, he could do this indefinitely. That being said, for the price that Meta is at right now, I'm banking that Zuckerberg is going to quit, but that's nothing more than a gamble. The weird thing about the big tech companies is that most people describe them like they compete with each other, when they almost don't compete with each other at all. Sometimes some of their side projects tend to overlap, but most of their core businesses are completely different. And almost all of them are monopolies in their own fields, either near monopolies, actual monopolies, or oligopolies. The point is they have very little competition. And that's one of my favorite things about investing in these companies. They're not just big tech, they're basically big monopolies. And the best part is they're monopolies that don't have any ability to lock people in. What this means is that it's very hard to bring lawsuits against them. Nothing is stopping you from using a different search engine. Nothing is stopping you from buying a different phone. Nothing is stopping you from deleting your social media. Nothing is stopping you from choosing a different online retailer. And now with multiple cloud providers, even businesses have choices. The biggest risk of monopoly lawsuits amongst big tech would be the app stores for both Apple and Google. And while losing their app store monopolies would result in a hit to their revenue, it is something that could be rebuilt over time with their other revenues. They're not solely reliant on them. And while some of them definitely have gotten carried away with research and development on relatively failed projects, These are things they learn from and can cancel at any moment. Amazon definitely did pump too much money into Alexa. Google made a very half-assed attempt with Stadia. And Mark Zuckerberg thinking Meta is the company to pioneer the metaverse is kinda dumb. The best part about these side projects is that most of it is just paying staff. None of their side projects are all that capital intensive. So the day that they realize it's not going anywhere is usually done with a series of large layoffs, many of which we've already seen starting. The one thing I will say is the detriment to all of these companies has been their stock-based compensation to employees. Silicon Valley has always had a labor shortage, but that was amplified over the pandemic years. However, now with the coming recession, I think this will ease up. Not only are there massive layoffs from almost all the big tech companies, but I think most of them will rehire people over time with much more favorable conditions, which means they'll probably be paid more by salary than stock-based compensation. This coincides with what will probably be the end of big tech's exponential growth phase. I have no doubt that big tech will exceed the growth rate of the S&P 500 overall, and their profit margins may even continue to grow as well along with it. But because of their immense size and their relative market shares, most of their growth from here will be linear. This will free up their continuous need for labor and resources, meaning a far greater amount of their profitability will probably be going to shareholders. These are the primary reasons I'm bullish on big tech. However, I would love to know all of your opinions. Do you have a different investing philosophy? Do you think big tech is way overpriced and way overrated? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like the content we make, be sure to like, subscribe, and keep watching Interesting Investments.